This episode is brought to you by Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. Stay tuned to hear how you can get your first month of Podbean for free. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Committed Critics, a pop culture podcast where we're not only committed to our opinions, but also each other. Aww. I'm Kevin Lau.
And I'm Ryan Davis.
And today we are again without Zach for this bonus episode talking about Invincible. Man, Invincible. We love it so much. We double dip on the viewership for as much as we can because now we're talking about spoilers. We didn't get to talk about spoilers last time, and that's, this is the show. This is the series. It's 144 issues. There's a lot to talk about, man.
Yeah, it's very hard to not talk about spoilers because you can only talk about the first 5 issues.
The first, essentially, because once you get to volume 2, yeah, that becomes huge spoilers. The trailers haven't shown any of that. I'm like, please. But yeah, so now we can say that Omni-Man killed those guys. Omni-Man's a bad guy. Viltrumites are evil, all that stuff. It's all there. Sorry for anyone who clicked on this episode thinking it's spoiler free and did not listen to me talking about spoilers earlier.
I was like, it very much turns the Superman narrative on its head because you were like, oh yeah, the Kryptonians are good guys. They didn't blow up. Yeah, that's because they're killing everyone.
Right. But so basically, to this episode is going to be building off of what we talked about in the previous episode. So even though the previous episode is spoiler free, highly recommend checking out if you like Invincible and want to know more of our thoughts on it. But now, as we get into spoilers, what I want to ask you, Ryan, what got you interested in reading the series, and what part got you hooked?
Well, okay. First off, Kevin, my comics dealer, told me about this new batch of a thing called Invincible, and I tried some of it, and oh man, yeah, I started. I couldn't get this itch. I had to keep getting more, so
you're like that meme, like scratch your neck, like y'all got any more of the Invincible comics?
Literally, Kevin's just like, read this comic. I was like, okay, sure, why not? Reads first volume. Okay, that was pretty good. Let me try the second dose. Oh man. But yeah, I was definitely I already kind of saw oh, this is kind of a parody on superheroes, and then the second volume just gets you hooked, and then you're like, oh, is this gonna change? Because that's where Omni-Man kills the Guardians of the Globe, aka Justice League parody, but and it just takes off from there because you watch Invincible, have to become his own superhero. He literally gets beaten by his dad, to a bloody pulp.
Right.
And it gets so much more interesting because then you have to see how is this going to change everything about his life? How is this going to change his relationships with his teammates? And then also I was very invested in the Mark and Eve storyline because I'm a sucker for destined love or whatever.
Canon romances.
Yeah, I was very much a sucker for it. And I was invested in that. I was invested in his relationship with Cecil. I was sad to see his mom become an alcoholic, but
Rip. It happens.
But, yeah, no, it definitely, those first that second and third volume are what got me hooked. Mm-hmm. From the get go.
Yeah, so Invincible had been on my radar for a long while. I'd say dating back to the early days of me reading comic books, I saw the cover of Invincible. I was like, oh, that looks like a fun superhero comic, but then I kind of just never got around to it. I actually forgot to tell you this, Ryan. I actually discovered recently when I was going through my comic book volumes, I actually do have the first volume of Invincible that I bought used from the library.
Really?
Yeah, and I just I picked it up because I heard good things about it. I got it a few years ago. But I just never got around to it because I was looking at the art style. It's just kind of simplistic and kind of cheesy, and the costume looks a little goofy.
Yeah, the costume threw me off because it reminded me of dang, I can't even think of who it is. It's some character from DC. It's a little bug dude. I can't remember what his name was, but the eye, the mask, just kept reminding me of that, and I was like, this is a stupid costume.
You mean Blue Beetle?
No, it
Not
wasn't
Blue
Blue
Beetle.
Beetle. It was like a ambush bug or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
some obscure character.
Yeah, a very obscure character. He's like he breaks the fourth wall and all that. But like I was just
Oh
like,
really?
yeah, like I was like, he looks stupid, and I was like, this Invincible costume. I mean, yellow and blue and black. What kind of costume is this?
Exactly. But then, man, was I wrong?
Yep.
I ended up loving that costume. Like I mean, the costume goes from like it gets rid of the yellow, it, like has black and blue instead. And I was like, it just doesn't feel right. And then when the original costume came back, man, I was hyped. I
I
was
found
pumped.
I found that interesting because I was like, that's when the series definitely took a darker turn. Was when he put on
Hmm.
that blue and black, and I was like, ha, he's gonna beat people black and blue.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, the part where I got hooked was similar to well, when I did start reading, I finally got interested when the teaser came out in October last year. So I
Hmm.
was like, I watched it. I was like, oh, like this looks really interesting. Like I'll finally give it a watch. I'm gonna give it a read. And then like it's like and then like I loved it and I got hooked the same way you did. Like right when in Volume 2, when Omni-Man killed the Guardians of the Globe, I was like, oh,
That's a twist.
this isn't like your everyday superhero comic. This is advanced superhero comic.
And it was so bloody, like especially when the first like couple issues are like very much like kid friendly,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden it's just like blood everywhere.
Right, exactly. It's like it's a series that starts off as one thing and then like reveals that it's actually another thing.
Which also, did
Um,
you recommend it to me like shortly after you started it, or was it like were you like halfway through or
I
something?
think I was 30 issues into it when I recommended to you.
Okay,
So I was like 6 volumes in.
gotcha.
Yeah, so I was like, by the time I'm on volume 6, I was like, yeah, this is really good. I think Ryan will like this one. And just kind of like to push, they'd be like, hey, check this out. I really like it so far. Don't know how it ends.
Me sitting at work, like, okay, I guess I'll read this. Me also sitting at work, I can't let anyone look at this because there's so much blood.
You just kind of like hide it from your coworkers. Yeah, just like apparently you had an issue with that with another manga. Woof.
Yeah.
Don't
Don't
don't don't
don't read.
read. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, don't read a comic got killed in public, people. It gets very it's very adult.
Don't watch it in public. It says like it's very sexual.
It's here's the thing: the manga is much worse than the anime.
Oh wow.
The anime is very toned down. I will say this: it's one of my favorite manga ever because it's very much the plot is much more solid, but
Hmm.
it is way more adult than I thought it would be.
Man, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on Zom 100.
Yeah. But
But
Kevin,
yeah,
what were your favorite elements of this series?
dude. So my favorite elements of the theories, we kind of touched base on it back in the other episode, but definitely the themes of the power of love, and the connection of two different cultures merging on Mark Grayson because he is half human, half Viltrumite.
Hmm.
So and these Viltrumites, as we know, like have a very different culture compared to Earthlings, humans. Um, those like the it's like survival of the fittest kind of deal with the Viltrumites, where they don't
Right.
care about helping the other person. It is if you are weak enough to where I can kill you, then you are not strong enough for the Empire. And just seeing how when the Viltrumites came to Earth, they had to basically use Earth as like their breeding ground to survive, and how the culture shaped them to and like how not only the other Viltrumites but also Mark's dad, and
Hmm.
also how Mark had to find the balance between the two of them, where he had to fight he had to really strengthen himself to fight people who tried to attack his family and the people he loves.
Hmm.
um not letting anger get the best of him, but also understanding like strength, the power he has with his strength, and how, man, I'm losing my train of thought, but I swear like it's but it's really like he has both of those cultures within him, like he's not letting anger get the best of him, but understanding that where anger comes from,
Yeah.
that anger is wanting to protect the people that you love, and that every time he throws a punch, it is the love of the people behind that punch that's supporting him. and that really all comes together when that one fight on the sun. The sun. I've
Literally on
never
the
seen a superhero fight on the sun. I never thought like when I watched it, I was like, wow, like why hasn't someone done this before? Like
right.
this is fantastic.
I was just like, even Superman has never fought on the surface of the sun. I was just
Like Superman has thrown someone at the sun in Superman 4 Quest for Peace.
Ugh.
But that he did not fight on the sun.
Right. I was like, this is like epic. Like, and the fact that it was just like literally just on the surface of the sun, like burning, like completely, like just literally lighting on fire.
Mm. And combined with not only the action of the fighting on the sun, but also the internal monologue that Mark has, that it really ties all the themes together in that one moment, just made it like easily one of the best comic book issues I've ever read.
Yes.
What about
Yeah.
you, Ryan? What were some of your favorite elements of the series?
I love the character beats, and it's like every single character feels fleshed out to the point where you're kind of like you know kind of each character, like especially like characters like, I mean, obviously Mark and Eve, but like Oliver. Like Oliver is like the same thing as Mark, whereas like he's from two different cultures. The only difference is his culture, they die very fast. They live for like 9 months at best, and so it's interesting because that gives him a completely different look. Because one, because of his Viltrumite DNA, he will live longer than 9 months. But
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because it kind of, their culture still shapes him to the point where he sees humans as like less than. He's like,
Right.
yeah, I'm not from here. I have no connection to these people other than the fact that my dad is here, my stepmother is here, and then you're here. But like he feels no affection for them. He couldn't care less because he's like, you guys just live like you live for a longish time, but you still fight each other. You don't see a sense of community, and so it's interesting to see that. And it's also characters like Robot and then Monster Girl, and how all of these characters like come together and connect with each other. Like you said, it's about power, love, and connection, but it's all these characters are connected through some way through into Mark, and it's interesting also because I like the fact that characters are not like invincible, despite the
Right.
name of the title. Like characters can die, characters can be broken. Like a lot of these characters go through a lot of things that change who they are from the beginning, and you start off like from where some characters start at the beginning and how they end up by the end of the series. It's interesting to see how they've changed. Besides Mark's dad, who obviously goes from being part of a dictatorish community to finding love and everything. It's interesting like how Robot starts off as in a jar, learns how to connect with others, and then gives it up again
Mm-hmm.
to try and have that power. It's so. I love a good cast. Love a good set of characters, but like I put this up here with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and like best group of characters
Mm-hmm.
like ever.
Yeah, because their dynamic with each other is really interesting, and also like there's a lot of actually like a good chunk of the series that's not focused on Mark himself. There's a lot of it focused on Robot, and some other side characters, and like even though
Robot
it's not
Alan.
yeah, even though we're not focusing on Mark, the series is still really interesting because those characters are really interesting as well, very well developed. And then of course, like when they go through their own story, you're thinking about like, oh man, like how is this going to affect Mark? And as we see, the answer is a lot, very much.
And I love how some characters that you like, or like some events that like you kind of just throw off as like, oh well, that was a small thing. It comes back like to hunt like the Flaxons. They're thrown in there as like a one-off like alien invasion. Like, oh yeah, these guys just come in, but if you break their stuff, they suddenly get old because they rapidly age and they have to run back to their own dimension, and they
Right.
just keep coming back. And each time it's much more difficult, and each time like they're learning, but two, you see how much that actually affects the characters as they keep coming back, especially Rex, Robot, and Monster Girl, who end up living in the Flaxen dimension, and it changes it changes those two characters completely. But
Right.
by the like that after that point, and it's just it's interesting because all these callbacks to different events do very much matter.
Right, and it's a series that has like a strong vision of how it knew how it wanted to end. And that's part of the reason why I stuck with it, because I realized very early on, like, oh, this series knows what it wants to do. Like, it knows where it wants to end and how to build that up. Because then you realize very soon that like volume one, even though it's a very staccato kind of like story of the week kind of deal, it's like it's still like you can tell start seeing the payoff very quickly. Like Alan becomes it becomes a more important role.
Yeah, I
the
like how they
Guardians of the
started
Globe
off as
becomes
like
more
he
important.
just happened to get to the wrong planet.
Right, like he's not just a one-off character. He's like, this is part of the build up to something bigger. And then Alan's such a great character, and like he's gonna be voiced by Seth Rogen in the show.
I'm curious
And
to
there's
see how that's gonna
also
work.
I can see it working pretty well. And also, Seth Rogen is also the producer, one of the producers for the live action Invincible film.
Oh, really?
They've been trying to get off the ground. Yeah, like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. So they're the duo that makes like they made the what was that movie?
Green Hornet?
Not Green Hornet. It was maybe it was Green Hornet, but the one where the Kim Jong Un, the interview.
Oh, the interview.
They produced that. I think they also produced the Neighbors, kind of like the Seth Rogen projects.
Yeah.
So they're going to be in charge of producing the Invincible film, which could be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the Robert Kirkman's heavily involved in that process too. So it could. I'm excited to see it, but I'm also more excited for the animation.
Yes.
Ooh, the animation.
The animation. I'm a very much animated type of person. I find it hard to watch hour-long shows, but this one I will definitely tune in.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Do you plan on watching all 3 episodes the first day it comes out?
Oh,
all
definitely.
3 hours.
100%.
Oh,
I'm gonna force Zach and Jordan to watch it. Yeah, watch out,
nice.
you two.
Well, on that note, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Starting a podcast? Try a Podbean Unlimited hosting plan. It's what we use here at Committed Critics, giving us the opportunity to have our show on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even Spotify. You can get your first month of unlimited hosting for free on us by going to podbean.com/committedcrits, just like our Twitter, or by clicking the link in the description. Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. And welcome back to the show. We are talking about Invincible spoilers, in case you forgot in the commercial break. I don't know why you would forget. Maybe you paused it there and then you tune back in the next day. I don't know. But I appreciate you listening to us either way.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We need all the views we can get. But Ryan, what's one particular scene or issue in Invincible that you love the most?
I mean, okay, I will say I enjoy a lot of stuff with Invincible. I enjoy very much the Invincible War, as they put it, where all the Invincibles from other dimensions come in, and then Conquest comes in. That was a very dark volume. That volume was very much like, that's where I kind of felt like the story changed, because I mean, between the fact that this whole war where you see all these evil Invincibles come in, and Mark realizes, hey, I'm probably like one of the only few good Invincibles out there in all these dimensions. And then also the fact that Conquest comes in and just wrecks the entire damn like world.
Stabs Eve in the stomach with his giant hand.
Well, I was like, I first thought he had an Infinity Gauntlet, because I was like, why the hell does he have this gold arm? And I'm like, please tell me that's not the Infinity Gauntlet. Please tell me this man isn't about to do a Thanos snap. But I mean, he snapped Eve's spine, so.
The funny thing is with Invincible, like, not with the series, but more like with me, I think. But like every time someone got hurt or like almost killed, I get really scared, even if it happened multiple times beforehand. Like I still get like really scared. Like, are they dead? Like, oh my god, I gotta keep reading.
Yeah, like no, it's like these people, like some of these people do like get seriously injured. Some of them live, some of them die. Like R.I.P. Rexplode. But
yeah, I think the fact that some of them do die is like you keeps you on edge. Like, I don't know if they're gonna be okay.
which
Like
does
I
which does lead me to my next thing that I love the most is the story of Rex Robot and Monster Girl, as how like just over the course of the series how those two characters evolve, and
mm-hmm,
then especially when they go to the time in the Flaxen home world, what happens there, how they come back, and then also everything Rex does with the superhero community because he very much I was reading and I was like, this is Order 66. This is very much like I hear the Star Wars music like all these heroes are just getting killed and I was like
mm-hmm.
these are clone troopers, like this is very much like execute Order 66. All the heroes just start getting killed off and then you got the
Oh
few who
yeah.
escape and I was like, man, this took a turn.
Uh-huh.
Like I was heartbroken because Rex was one of my favorite characters, Robot, whichever one you want to call him. I'll call him
Mm-hmm.
Robot for the sake to not get him confused with Rex Explode, but he was probably my favorite character besides obviously Invincible because I
Mm-hmm.
was like he starts off as just literally a guy in a tube controlling a robot and then he's made into like he's a kid. Like he was like, I want to grow up. I want to experience life again. But like
Mm-hmm.
going through it all, and he develops his friendship with Amanda, Monster Girl. And I will say I got a little bit of his story spoiled for me because I was very much interested to see, hey, when do Mark and Eve officially end up together? So I was like, oh, let me scroll down and just like look what the cover is, and I was like, oh, Mark and Eve with a kid, and I like clicked on it, and it's like, yeah, family, and then the first thing it says like after robots attempt to take over the world, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, oh, okay. And so I was like expecting, I was like, oh, well, maybe he's actually evil this entire time. So I was like looking at everything he did suspiciously. I'm like, is this where he turns against everyone? And I didn't realize it's actually a development. Like, it's actually
Mm-hmm.
like a story part. He's not inherently evil. He just ends up that way because of, how the world, how he's affected by two different worlds.
Right.
And I was just like, wow. I'm like, I'm mad I spoiled that for myself, but it's also two, I was looking at this character and I was like, man, I love him, but like, why is he gonna turn evil? And I was like,
Right. Well, I mean, I think I mean, that's cool that like it's not like the advertisements or the synopsis of each volume. It's not like a full spoiler.
mm-hmm,
It's like it tells you the major plot point, and you're like, but how does that happen? Like what?
yep,
You're like, yeah, no. So it's like and it like it happens differently than you would expect it, and I think that's really great. So even though you were quote unquote you were spoiled technically, like it still wasn't enough to really ruin the experience because you didn't because now you had that hanging over your head like when is this gonna happen? Like when's the ball gonna drop?
and I like after seeing what happens in the Flax and Homeworld, I'm like, oh damn, that's what happened. And it literally looking reading that entire volume, it broke my
Mm-hmm.
heart. Like it I was sad to see how Robot and Amanda's story ended, and Monster Girl. I was just like, damn, I was rooting for them, and how they end up at the end of the series. Like you see Mark and Eve, who are like kind of like the happy family, like they kind of will progress the world, like the universe. And
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of the spectrum, you see Robot and Monster Girl. So you see one person who has all the power and
Right.
decides not to and decides to use it for good and not evil, and decides not to use it to control. Whereas you see someone who had like very little power, took more power, and kept trying to take more power until he's left with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because they're very much inverse of each other, and I thought that was very good to end it with them. Like Mark's final villain isn't Thrag, who's been
Right.
kind of like built up as like he's the Viltrumite former emperor. Like he seems like he's going to be like the main challenge. And yeah, fighting on the sun, that was a huge challenge. But
Right.
no, it ends with this has been Mark's one of his closest friends,
Mm-hmm.
and it ends between do I kill this person? Do I choose to be the person who says I'm going to kill in order to preserve what I believe?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and then that's also like really like the dynamic between like Thrag and Robot because that's the thing that I personally really enjoy superhero stuff does is where like you have the plot villain,
Mm-hmm.
which is the one that's going to take over the world and to kill everyone you love. And you're like, no, please, I gotta stop you. Then you have the personal villain, which is someone that the character has a deep connection to and like once saw as a friend, but then turned on them. So they don't know, like they feel morally conflicted of stopping them.
I,
Um,
I kind of look at it as the difference between like Lex Luthor and Zod, kind of in a way,
mhm.
if you think about it. If people need someone to connect it to, like Lex Luthor is obviously the personal villain for Superman, whereas Zod is his major villain.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's really, I really like how that went down in the comic too, especially like, I like like what they did with Robot at the end, where like
Mm-hmm.
he's the brain of like, because he was right about like, he knew of an efficient way to get world peace and all that stuff, but he just had an immoral way of going about it. And
Yeah.
now with Immortal being that filter, um to who was once Abraham Lincoln, crazy enough, being that filter with Robot, I feel, and like to create the perfect Earth, I think that's like, I think that's the best ending for that they could have came up with.
And it's interesting also because you see Mark work with dinosaurs who kind of has the same, ideas
Hmm.
robot, but you see how much it backfires with that.
Oh, it backfired.
And so like it backfires so much that like Mark can't accept that robot is gonna follow literally the same path after also he judged Mark for you know helping dinosaurs.
And
Yeah,
that's the first time Mark intentionally had to kill someone too.
yeah. Like every other time it's like it's just been in battle. No, this one he had to literally look him in the eye and then just kill him.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
make sure you show me his corpse."
Yeah, it's that was like, I really love how that was executed too. It was like one of my favorite pages of the series. It's just him walking out of that base and sitting down while then Cecil comes in, um as he's sitting over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just like a really powerful moment. Yeah, as far as like scenes or issues that I particularly love, like that's one of them. Also, issue 110, best issue ever.
Which one was that again? You have to
That's
remind.
the one. That's the one when he gets jumped on.
Oh, yeah. No, I did enjoy. I was like, this is a like good emotional issue, but also, holy Jesus.
It's so
Again,
good, sir.
that's also another issue I read at work, and I was like, I can't read this at work. Oh no.
Of all the issues to read at work, it's that one.
I was like, luckily it was during it was, luckily it was not at in the moment. Like I was on break at that point, but at the same time, I was just like,
And it's
yep,
only 3 pages too, but it's like there's so many panels
yeah.
that kind of like piece it together. It's like whoa.
I was like,
But
this happened.
yeah, it's very well executed. I really like the payoff of it too as it
Mm-hmm.
goes on. There's some controversy of whether or not that I forgot her name,
And
but that character Vanessa, yeah, whether or not she could actually be forgiven.
yeah.
There's a controversy about that. I think I'm not gonna say anything on that at the moment.
I mean, there's
It's
a
just
lot of characters where you can question, like, can they be forgiven for their actions? Because, like,
right.
can you forgive Robot for his actions? Can you
Hmm.
forgive Omni-Man for his actions? Can you forgive,
Hmm.
like, a lot of these characters? Is like, can you forgive them for what they've done to certain people?
Right. And I think, but the best part is that these characters learn that they were wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and like they want to make amends, but they also understand, like like I understand. They're like, yeah, I understand if you don't forgive me because what I did was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then like and then some characters don't forgive them, and it's like, which is understandable. That you can't really fault people. I never once read a scene or anything in the series where it's like, yeah, this character's just being stupid and wrong. Like, no,
Yeah.
like no, like I understand what's going on. I understand what's going through their head. Like,
Like,
this is I get
Angstrom
it.
Levy, that was an
Hmm.
interesting dynamic because it's like, it's a villain that was born from his own, like, his own like idiocy, but like he blames Invincible for it, and it's you see that like he's clearly in the wrong, but you
Hmm.
get where he's coming from at the same time,
Hmm.
and it's interesting to see at the very end when he realizes, hey, maybe I I was wrong. He doesn't get a chance to pay it off.
Right. Another issue I love was issue 100. Was the one where like it starts off with Mark getting his head smashed in by a Dinosaurus.
Yeah.
Uh, like that was like because of the issue before that was building up to it. It's like he picks up Mark and he's like, oh, Mark suddenly doesn't have his costume on. That's
Yep.
weird. and it's like his head's getting squished together, like uh-oh, and he's gonna get out of it though, and then turn the page and boom, I'm like, oh
Yep,
my
I was just
god.
like, I was very much like, oh snap! I had the same thing. I was like, why is this costume suddenly off? I was like, man, that building really did a lot of damage to that little one, to that onesie. I mean, I guess they don't make superhero costumes like the Nick used to. And next page, oh, so dinosaurs can smash human heads. Cool.
Yeah, Viltrumite heads
Or
at
Viltrumite
that.
heads. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like, but man, like think about like one issue 100 is like a huge milestone. Like, what better way to start off that milestone to just seeing your the main character's head get smashed?
I also want to say, because now you put me on that. I think it was what, I can't remember what issue it was, but they like, it was another milestone issue. Where they kind of focus on for some, like they just go to Bulletproof, and his character, as he's working or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because he has that whole dynamic with his family or whatever.
Right. I think
And
it's like 96, 97.
yeah, because it's like
So
it's
it's
the
really
volume
close to
it's
that.
the volume leading up to everything with issue 100. And I
Mm-hmm.
like because they have this whole storyline where it's like, yeah, Bulletproof. His brother had the power. His brother had his parents' love and everything, and then his brother turned out to be kind of crazy and tried to, give
Mm-hmm.
himself superpowers by using his own brother as a experiment, and then his brother ended up dying, and Bulletproof got the powers, and so he pretended to be both brothers. And he saw how his parents treated him, and his parents still hated him at
Mm-hmm.
the end, and he accidentally kills the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this whole thing where like they go like, yeah, I bet you weren't expecting to get that dark, and it turns out it's just Mark explaining like his favorite comic series. But it's like them
Yeah,
breaking the
right.
fourth wall, and it's Robert Kirkman being like, "Yeah, I know we changed a lot of stuff, and I know you might not be happy with it, but like, deal. This is
Got
what it goes well in the comics." And I'm
it.
like,
Gotta keep it fresh.
I was like, I
I
like
do
that
love
stuff.
all the fourth wall breaks, especially like early on when
Mm-hmm.
like they were talking about like, oh, you seem to reuse a lot of art. It's like, yeah, well, it's cheaper to reuse art, and reuse art, especially when you don't, especially to add emotional beats to it. It's like a nice way to cheat around the system. And it just in like that page just reuses art
Yeah.
the whole time.
I was like, that's pretty funny. I was like, I like those little things. You can't they won't be able to do that in the show unless they like make fun of like TV shows. But like,
Exactly.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's when
I
you
think
read
that's
the
something that's like
comic.
exclusively gonna be in the comic, unless it's like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's like, I guess it's Seance Dog, not Science Dog in
Oh,
the
it's
show.
Seance Dog.
Yeah, in the recent clip, it's like they pronounce it Seance Dog.
Oh, I thought it was science. I thought they still said Science Dog. Well, maybe it's Seance. I don't know.
I don't know. I heard Seance. Apparently, there's some debate in the YouTube comments
Oh,
what it was actually said.
I heard science. So is this gonna be a dress thing where it's like, is the
Yeah,
dress
it's
gold,
like the
gold or blue?
yeah, it's like black. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. We'll see when the actual show comes out. Well, it'd be interesting if it's Seance Dog. Like this. What if this is part of the Invincible multiverse? Like this is one of the alternate marks.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Because then, I mean, that way they don't have to follow the comic exactly. But I kind
Right.
of want to see the comic exactly because
It's great. I mean, like I said in the other episode, like I don't expect a 1-to-1 adaptation because of what works in the comic works really well in comic book form. And wouldn't translate well to animations. One Punch Man had a similar issue where, the manga was really great, but then I watched the anime. I was like, it's like it follows it 1-to-1, but it doesn't quite work as well when it's animated because of all the inside jokes when fourth wall breaks that One Punch Man does.
I mean, that's a lot of serious. Like, Comic Got Killed has the same problem. I mean, Soul Eater. Some things just don't translate as well, or they might have to make changes depending on how, like, because it won't work as well. But
Right, exactly. But yeah, no, I hope like there's still some form of fourth wall breaks in the show, like some about recycled animations or like recycled sound effects or something.
I'm just wondering where they're gonna end the season at, because I'm like, 8 episodes, an hour long. You can do a lot with
So
especially how fast paced the first couple volumes are.
yeah, my theory is that like each episode is essentially like the one volume, so we get like the first 8 volumes. Apparently, I feel like I'm a fake Invincible fan now. I'm forgetting the names of Mark's brother.
Oh,
Uh,
Oliver.
Oliver. Yes, I don't know. I'm terrible with names. Look, I swear I read the series. um, Oliver. There's a cast for Oliver. I don't know if it's a kid
Yeah.
or not. It's a relatively new name.
Well, I don't think
So
he's
we
gonna be a teenager by the end of the first season.
well because Oliver comes in volume 6.
Really?
That's when we get introduced to him. Yeah.
Is that really
That's
volume 6?
Yeah, volume 6 is when Mark goes out to and finds his dad on that alien planet and then
That
meets Oliver as a baby.
that feels like it's so far in the series.
I know, so much happens, man.
What the hell? Okay, now I'm like looking at the stuff and I'm like, wow, a lot of stuff happened much earlier than I thought it would.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I think the first 3 episodes is going to be like the first 2.5 or 3 volumes, because it's like I think the first episode is going to be like the volume 1 essentially, where it's like Mark gets his powers, does the superhero stuff. It's like cool. Then like maybe the stinger at the end is like, oh, something's like off a little bit about Omni-Man or something like that, or someone kills the Guardians of the Globe.
I can't believe volume 8 is when the Martian, like the little parasites come in. Oh wow!
Yeah.
This series moved much faster than I thought it did.
Well, I think part of what makes it long is that Robert Kirkman is very a long-winded writer.
Yeah.
So like a lot of the dialogue is very long. It's part of what put me off of Walking Dead, because I didn't like how long it was. It felt very flat. In Invincible, it worked pretty well because of the art style too. It was like fun and vibrant colors, so like you can forgive the sometimes flat dialogue. But obviously the dialogue gets better as it goes on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So like my prediction as far as the episodes are paced, like episode 1 is like volume 1. Everyone, Marcus's powers, they do he meets the team, goes to do super powered things. Then at the end, I think maybe the cliffhanger at the end of episode 1 is that Omni-Man kills the Guardians of the Globe.
Yeah.
And then episode 2 is like, kind of continues the story of volume 2, and then it ends with like Mark seeing his dad kill Immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe episode 3 is like most of episode 3 is the fight.
Yeah.
Between him and his dad.
Because that's one
to
thing
kind of like
you can do in animation is like build up fights. Because like, for example, the fight between Deku and Overhaul in My Hero Academia, like in the manga, it's like 3-4 pages. And
right.
It's like in the anime, that's at least a 6-minute, 7-minute fight. Like it's
exactly.
that part of the air at least.
Yeah, it's that part in the air definitely for sure. And then like, but yeah, so like you can with animation you can extend the fights more than you can with live action. Because live action is like, but you get to a point where it's like, all right, cool, I get it, move on. Animation is like, it's more intense. Like you don't realize, especially with anime, like a whole fight is more than 20 minutes. Because of all that goes on. And this, in this case, Mark and his dad are fighting all around the world. So I'm assuming like there's gonna be like, there's a lot to do with that.
And the death toll is very high.
Oh yeah. So I think that's another reason why they have 3 episodes right off the bat, because it's gonna end with the repercussions of his dad leaving Earth, and then they kind of end with that. That's my prediction, at least. That's sense. How I would do it.
They probably will end it with the season finale being everything with on Oliver's planet.
Right. I would imagine that. But also I think the season finale might be about like, with everything on Oliver's planet. Maybe because that's when we meet the Viltrumites. I think maybe also because in volume 8, the Viltrumites visit Mark at Earth, and you're like, hey, like you are the new representative for this planet. Let us know when you take it over. So its season finale would put like a ticking clock on Mark's story.
Yeah.
Which like that would work if it's like 1 volume per episode, because then so if we're getting 8 episodes per season, so that's 3 seasons for 24 episodes, but then like the last episode can be a double length, like 2-hour movie to make it all 25 volumes.
Or if they just want to add a 9th episode for the final season, who knows?
Who knows? But I'm excited. And then like before we move on to the next topic, I did want to say like another scene I really loved in Invincible was like no other comic book moment has hit me this hard, was the ending of the issue where Mark comes back to his family after going back in time and then seeing his daughter is 5 years older. He just missed out 5 years of his daughter's life. Like that was like a mic drop.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, I don't know, like I can imagine like seeing that, like you come like the last time he left them, he was like, I'll be back, like he's like he's made all these efforts in order to be a family man, to be there for his family. And he's like, okay, I have to go do this thing to stop Thrag. Hopefully it won't take too long. Hopefully I'll be back soon. And then he's gone for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
changes everything. And I did like the introduction of his daughter. His daughter did make me laugh a couple times, especially when they're trying to escape from the Viltrumites.
Oh man, dude, that was so scary.
Oh yeah, no, it was scary. But I laughed when she like, oh, I can fly now, and then Thrag comes up like, yeah, you can fly to your death.
Yeah, then she tries to kick Thrag and breaks her leg.
Yeah, I was like, whoo. But no, like I did very much enjoy those story beats, and I did enjoy watching her grow up in the final issue, because you kind of watch it as they're just exploring. They're like literally having a Star Trek experience where it's like, yeah, we're gonna take our daughter to these different planets, and then it's just like watching her grow up and go through all literally the phases of life. It's like from the wide-eyed child to the I'm an emo kid, teen, preteen, to the rebellious teenage / college daughter, to like finally like, yeah, I'm like going to go help the world, and I'm like, okay. And on the opposite side, you have Marky.
Ooh, man.
Which was a huge story beat that I was like, oh, I was not prepared for that one line. But
Yeah, no, it was really powerful. That last issue was just amazing. Like I love how emotional it was, and like how it just ends at the perfect moment where
it
like
sums up the whole series. Like
yeah, it's really fantastic. And the reveal that Mark was like 500 years old at the end of it, I was like, so good.
500 years old, and his wife just is immortal.
Yeah, I wonder what happens to Eve after Mark is dead. Like, is she just gonna like cut her head off or something, or like?
I don't think she can. That's the problem. She's
because she when she dies, she's alive just enough to like bring her back.
she's
I
been
feel
ripped
like
in half.
well, right, but like her brain is still attached to her body, so like.
Kevin, if you're ripped in half, I don't think that should be anything coming. You shouldn't be coming back from being ripped in half.
I mean, you're right. Man, spin-off series, Adam Eve saves the universe or whatever.
What? I mean, look on the bright side. She'll be able to hang out with her daughter, her grandkids, everything.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, she'll always have a reason to live, I guess.
I was like, it's hilarious because her powers are like the most generic, and it's like they're not all that powerful, but like it also she's literally immortal.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. But yeah, so as we continue on, you've read the Astonishing Wolfman spinoff. So what were your thoughts on that one?
I very much enjoyed it. Like I know you tried reading it, you didn't kind of get into it as much. I enjoyed it because it's a different take on the Invincible universe. You actually see the supernatural side of it, and they do show up a couple times in the Invincible series. Because at first you just see Wolfman, and then later on in the series you hear about Wolfman and the Wolf Corpse.
Yeah,
that's literally what happens. Like it starts off, this character Wolfman is like some rich dude. He ended up getting bit by this giant, werewolf. They thought it was a bear, but it's a werewolf, and on a camping trip with his family, and he becomes a werewolf. And so, he basically has all the, werewolf things. The difference is he can switch between the two forms, except for once a night, when he becomes bloodthirsty, full moon or whatever. And he has this partner who's a vampire, and they kind of have a Batman-Alfred relationship, which I thought was kind of funny. But it takes a turn, same way as Invincible. Are we doing spoilers for Wolfman?
Let's keep the Wolfman spoiler free.
Okay, then Wolfman, it takes a turn, kind of how the same way Invincible does, major deaths, and it changes the entire dynamic of the story. And you kind of see that Invincible a little bit. They have like 2 issues where they kind of they tease Wolfman, and he has like a whole partnership with him, and you kind of learn about what Wolfman's story is about. And it's interesting because you see it's still about family for Wolfman, because his own motivation is to get back to his family. Like he still wants to help people. He still wants to keep his powers. It's not about giving up his powers. He just wants to have his powers and be able to help people, but also to have his family there to support him. And since he's a werewolf and he also has that problem of being bloodthirsty, the world kind of is is different from it treats him differently than how it treats Invincible. They all see a giant wolf monster and not like a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind
One
of
thing.
hmm?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just kind of like it's interesting because he's like it's a different dynamic of family because it's like he is the father of his family. He has to take care of his daughter. He has to take care of his wife, but he also is like losing everything around him. He's losing his fortune and he's losing his family, but he also is like, well, how do I keep all of this together?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. The one thing I did like about the Astounding Wolfman was the art style too. It was like a very like Saturday morning cartoon vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like obviously like Invincible starts off with as well. Like it's still you still got a lot of blood and all that stuff going on.
Yeah,
It's like this isn't a kid comic, man.
yeah.
Not a kid comic.
It very much in the kick and like you see it like it definitely explores the supernatural side of the Invincible universe because I kind of
Mm-hmm.
equate it as like if you were reading like Constantine in the DC universe where Constantine is one of the main magic people for the DC universe. It's kind of like that. Like you see, hey, they have vampires, they have werewolves, they have all these other supernatural creatures that you think about like that go bump in the night, and it's like you see him having to work with and against all these different characters while also trying to prove he's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So
I highly recommend it. It's not better than Invincible. I won't say that. It's only 25 issues.
right. So yeah,
Um,
it's a really really short. I think on Hoopla they have it all in one collection.
yeah.
So what do you
It,
got to lose, man?
it's 25 issues. It has that kind of pacing that Robert Kirkman has in the Invincible series, where it's like you feel like there's a whole lot going on, but it's also like, wow, this is only one volume. As I just
Mm-hmm.
demonstrated, not realizing that Oliver was only volume 6, and I still thought that was like halfway through the series.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's a lot happens.
The
That's what
pacing is phenomenal.
yeah, no, so like he does a lot of like each scene is like 3 or 4 pages, except for like once in a while you get like a longer scene, but like but every page kind of like it's like the beginning of every page establishes the next scene pretty well, and that's I think it's a really good template that he has going on for him.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the last topic of the podcast, what is the one part that you're excited to see in the show that which premieres today, the same day this episode comes out?
I mean, I'm excited to see the character beats. I'm excited to see how all these characters are going to interact. I'm excited to hear the voice cast because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the biggest things. I'm like, it's a solid cast. But I'm also
Mm-hmm.
excited to see like the fights because as you know, I very much like anime, and this isn't like other comic shows because like most comic book superhero shows, the fights are good. But, like with the exception of like I think Young Justice, none of them are like very much, you know, okay. Young Justice and Justice League, like
Mm-hmm.
none of them are like punching people through buildings or like knocking down stuff, and they're especially not very gory. This is
Right,
like
unless you watched the Harley Quinn show.
yeah, the Harley Quinn show, but that's a parody, so it's like
Yeah.
it's still like doesn't reach that same element. Whereas like this is like the best of both worlds. It has the realism of what it's like to be a superhero. You're gonna see characters bleed. You're gonna see characters, be heartbroken. They're all alive. Like they're all very
Mm-hmm.
much like living their lives or trying to be human,
Mm-hmm.
or in Mark's case, half human. But I'm is
Right.
I'm just excited to see how they develop and how they adapt this show, and how they like try and translate some stuff from comic to show and keep people
Mm-hmm.
interested because I know
Yeah.
people are going to
I mean,
very
like Battle Beast comes in pretty soon. He's like he makes an appearance. Like I don't remember. I
yeah.
don't think Battle Beast is in the first 8 volumes.
I don't think so
Um,
either.
so seeing
Well,
Battle
he
Beast
he does
early
show up
on.
like in a like when they're doing a hit, when Mark is trying to stop a hit or something like with
Oh, that
Tiger.
is true.
So I
Yeah,
was
that's
like,
probably the story arc that they're going to show in the this season.
yeah, but I mean like I feel like I'm always like scared because I'm like as I said, a lot of my friends don't like animation stuff. They're very much like, oh, they see something animated, if it ain't Disney, they immediately shut it down. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this show, if you like superheroes, if you just like a good plot, like, I highly recommend this show. You're going to enjoy
Mm.
it. Get past the fact that it's animated. Not everything has to be live action because, one, sometimes those fall flat. If you looked at everything, superheroes don't always work live action. Look at the
Mm.
CW. It is not the best thing out there.
Oh yeah. See, I mean, in well, not defense of the CW, but like more like the medium itself of live action. CW is very low budget TV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, I mean, it's just also like finding the right director for the project.
Yeah.
To get the real feel and vibe of the comic. Like, none of it matches up very well. I do. I mean, like, people hate Zack Snyder directing Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, but actually, like, I kind of dug that one.
Same.
Like, he was like, oh, like he got the vibe from like certain comics. Like, sure, it's like not the best move. It doesn't tell the best story, but hey, like,
Right.
adaptation. I want adaptations to try something new. Not
Mm-hmm.
instead of like adhering to this material to the point where like it loses focus.
Yeah.
Um, and but yeah, no, I'm looking forward to obviously the violence of the show. I love animated action scenes. And also experiencing the story with movement and sound, like seeing the characters move, hearing the characters talk, having that music come in at the right moments. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited. I'm really really pumped. Like I said, like I've lost count of how many times I watched the trailer and the clips. Like, I hope this is good. I hope I'm not overhyping it for myself, but
It's like,
it looks great.
this is gonna be my good superhero fix because I haven't had a superhero fix in a while. Because frankly, Marvel's gotten stale for me, and I
Hmm.
mean DC ain't pumping it. I don't have Young Justice season 4. Where's my Young Justice season 4? This is what I
Right.
have.
DC's on hold for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I guess I'm gonna watch Invincible. Like,
Hmm.
I already The Boys in Umbrella Academy isn't coming out anytime soon, so
Well, there you go. This has been another episode of Committed Critics. We went a bit long today, but that's how it is with spoilers. We got a lot to talk about, especially with Invincible with 144 issues, and it's fantastic. We will be doing a review of the show after all the episodes have come out for this season. Hopefully, we can get Zach and Jordan involved as well. But yeah, look forward to that. You can follow us on Twitter at Committed Chris, as COMMITTEDCRITS. You can follow us on YouTube at Committed Critics. That is spelled the same there as it is here and everywhere else. You can support us on Patreon. Just $1 or $2 a month can be fantastic and just really make our day. Special thanks to our current patron, David Peppers, who's been on the show a couple of episodes. Really great guy, really fantastic film critic. He also a game critic as well. You can follow his YouTube channel, Game Mechanics, on YouTube, where he does video essays on video games and like how the mechanics and storytelling of the medium can apply to real life. And with that note, special thanks to our sound engineer, Jordan Smearman, and we will see you next week. Bye bye.
adios.